Hello, and welcome to our video audio podcast, Couched in Color. I'm your mental health expert, teen and young adult crusader, and psychological scientist, Dr. Alfie. This podcast reflects my life's work, helping our young people and young at heart identify mental health challenges, disrupt negative patterns, and discover the best versions of themselves. I'm so happy that you've joined us. For over 20 years, I want you to know that I've had my finger on the pulse of BIPOC teen mental health. I recognize that historically and currently, with these dual pandemics of COVID and racial injustice raging, our young people are suffering, sometimes they're struggling, and always the care that they need is quite scarce. So each week, I'm joined by young people, mental health experts, celebrities, and influencers to help us uncover the secrets to healing the hearts and minds of our BIPOC teens, their families, and their communities. Here at Couched in Color, we believe deeply in spreading love and light, bolstered by culturally relevant science. So let's dive in. Welcome, everyone, to Couched in Color with Dr. Alfie. It is my pleasure to have my guest with us today. We have worked together. He's been very supportive of our work at the Acoma Project, my nonprofit, supporting us around being a subject matter expert. And he just has all his own wonderful stuff going on. You can see it's a brother. I love having the brothers on to highlight, I was going to say the young men, but then I sound like my grandma.
Put me in the young man category. I'll take
Okay, there
it.
we go. You be young man to have the young man with us, because it's so important for boys, young men to see brothers who are in the field actively and passionately talking about and advocating for positive mental health for Black men of color specifically. So I want to introduce my guest, Mr. Jason Phillips, and then I want to have you, sir, please introduce yourself to the family out there at Couched in Color and tell us just a little bit about your passion for mental health.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks, Dr. Alfie. I'm super excited to be here. My passion is definitely for not just Black mental health, but Black males and mental health. So I'll say a little something about me outside of being a therapist and life coach. I'm still a mentor, but I've had my own mentoring program. And what I noticed was, our young males, they struggle with confidence, with fitting in, with knowing just how to interact. And they have all these things going on at home. And believe it or not, it doesn't just affect, how they perform at school, but it affects how they think about themselves and their own mental health and wellness. So I'm passionate about this topic. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I love it. Now, you mentioned a little bit about yourself. Can you tell
Yes.
us a little bit more about your background and training? So you mentioned your mentoring program. You mentioned that you identify as a therapist and a life coach. Tell us a little bit about your training and background, because I want to have the young men and moms and dads and guardians and mentors and sponsors who watch this to understand what kind of training it takes to get to the place, a place like you, a place where you are as a mental health professional in this field.
Okay, thank you. So I will say first, my background, my bachelor's is in psychology, and my master of social work is from the University of Michigan. So I received my training there. Yeah, go blue. So I've been in the field for a little over 10 years now, quite a while, and my specialized training has always been in African American studies and mental health interpersonal practice.
Oh, I love
So
it.
yeah, and I had my own mentoring program because I was a mentor for the Big Brother Big Sister program, and what I noticed is that they did not have enough Black males to identify and mentor these young Black males. So my mentee was about, I've had a couple, but one in particular, let's say he was about 8 years old when I first started mentoring him, and his brother was 10, like 2 years older. And the first thing he said to me was, like, we introduced ourselves and everything, and he's like, why did it take so long? I was like, what do you mean, why did it take so long? He was very blunt, and he said, well, I've been waiting for almost a year. And I thought, wow, I had no idea at all. So that's what sparked my interest to say, how can we develop something to get males mentors much sooner? Luckily, I knew a couple of males. One was another social worker. A couple were other just good Black men who I had gone to undergrad with. and we formed a Champions Mentor program where we work with young men ages 8 to 14 because we wanted to capture them at that age where they were very just easily influenced, and they needed somebody to talk to who could look like them and identify with what they were going through. So that was, again, we did that back in 2011. As a social worker, I've worked in different areas. So I started out working in grief counseling at a hospice center. So I've done hospice social work. I've worked in the VA system. So I worked with veterans. I've worked with active duty soldiers, of course, community mental health work. And I worked a little bit in psychiatric inpatient units too. So that's just a little bit about in college counseling. So I've worked in a lot of different areas and spaces, which I love because now I have different experience, and I've been able to see people, when they're in their younger years, in their latter years, after they've suffered a loss of any type of person or whatever it was, because we were open to the community as well. Having all of this experience helped me to just really understand the importance of being a Black male, what I provide to our community, how much people can resonate and open up when somebody does look like you and they feel like you can understand what they've been through.
Wow.
Wow.
You don't look old enough to have all that experience. That's a lot of set. Good night. You must start when you was 2. And I think it's wonderful because I'm sure every place you were in, there was a shortage of Black men, right? Providing care.
So it forced me to work with children. Not saying I didn't want to, but I always loved mentoring children, but I was not a child therapist, right? So I'm big on practicing in your scope and what you're trained for. However, at one place I worked, the intake coordinator would pair you based on who she felt was going to be a good fit, based on your skills and also, your demographics. So I was ending up with 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and I was like, Miss Jackson, I'm not a child there. And she said, well, they wanted a Black male, and there was one other person.
Okay.
But he was already way booked out.
Right.
So she said, you the man for the job. So I sought mentorship and supervision to make sure I was providing the best care. And what my mentor did tell me, he said, sometimes, you are the best person. So you don't need to always think about referring out. And he instilled that confidence in me, like, hey, there's a lot you bring to the table, because he was a lot older. Well, I don't say a lot, but he was like 20 years older. So he was like, they don't always want to just, I was 20, 23, 24, whatever I was. He's like, they can talk to you a little bit better about some things than they can me, no matter what my experience and all of that is.
I love that. And I'm tell you one thing I'm going to pick out of that story. And that is that there's this idea of mentoring, which you are very well versed in because you run the Champions Mentorship program. And there's this idea of sponsorship. And sponsorship is really, I just love this. So I learned this concept in 2013, 2014. I have this wonderful white Jewish woman who was really a sponsor to me. Her name is Dr. Karen Gale, and she passed away, I think, in 2015. And I always will know that Dr. Gale came into my life. They say for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. She was in my life for a reason and a season. She'll always be with me, but that white woman grabbed me up. I was academic at the time at Georgetown in the Department of Psychiatry. She was in a whole different department at the hospital. I think she was a bench scientist. And Dr. Gale was passionate about the civil rights movement because she had come through that generation. She was like, I know I'm a white girl, but Jews and Blacks, and we have to fight together. And so what she did for me was she got me promoted from assistant to associate, which we're going to keep it real. I should have come into the institution as an associate professor, but they was tripping. And so she made that happen. On top of that, she made sure that I got sent to this training program with the American Association of Medical Colleges. And it was life-changing. It was for women academics in academic medicine, all different, letters behind their name. And so at this meeting, they taught us about the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. And the woman who led it was also a white Jewish woman who was I think she was the only, at the time, chief financial officer for any academic teaching hospital in the United States, of which there are over 100. So this woman, probably in her 60s at the time, and she taught us She went through this whole thing. It was the plenary session. It must have been 1,000 women in there. And she was up on the stage and she said, there's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship. And I looked up. I was like, oh, okay, what is this? I've
Right.
never heard this before. And what she said was, I'm paraphrasing,
Mm-hmm.
a mentor is a person who supports you and gives you good knowledge and feedback and gives you guidance. A sponsor is a person who leverages what they have, their power and their privilege, to help you move ahead. Right. And
Mm.
so when you're talking about mentorship, I think what you all also are providing for these boys is sponsorship. Because if an opportunity showed up for that child to be moved ahead in some way or to be in an honor society or something like that, you would make sure that you all did everything in your power to get that kid the support that he needs to move forward. And so I just love this idea of sponsorship and how for Black men, I think the question in here is I'm wondering for you, did you have people in your life like this brother that you just described? That's called
Yeah.
sponsorship. Because what he
Yeah.
told you was have confidence in who you are, have confidence in what you bring to the table. Michigan taught you a lot.
Oh
But you
yeah.
know what I'm saying? But your family and your background, that's what made you. And I'm gonna
Right.
need you to use that for these kids. And so I'm wondering, are there other people that you can think of who provided sponsorship for you? And can you articulate, just reflect on it, the ways in which you have been a sponsor, probably never even considered it for other young men in your life?
Oh, yeah, Dr. F, that's a good question. I love the way you put that together. So, yes, to answer the first part, there are a few people who definitely have been pillars in my life and have been sponsors. So, one, I would say there was a white professor who I had, Sally Foley at U of M. Great professor. I remember talking to her, and I said, Sally, I'm looking for a job, and we had a good connection, right? I took a number of her classes, and I was able to excel. So, being from Detroit, and going
Wait
through
a minute, you
these,
from the D?
I'm from the D.
Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. We gotta take a detour right quick.
Yeah.
I went to Howard, right? So
Oh,
it was LA, New York, Detroit, and the Caribbean. Those were the big, right? So you know what question is coming. It's a D question. Where you went to high school at?
you know where I went to high school at?
You
Cass
went to, you went to Cat. Oh, come on now. Come on now.
Cass
So the
Tech.
fact that you
Yep.
went to Cat, you ain't need no daggone sponsor. You went to Cass. That's all you need. Come on now. For people who don't know, go Google Cass Tech and look up the
Listen.
illustrious alumni, including our friend Mr. Jason Phillips here. So I had to take that detour because you're from the D. We had to go there.
Real quick, and I'm gonna answer your question. I was
Yeah.
talking to a friend of mine from Cavs. We hadn't talked in probably like 20 years, and she's also a life coach. And we were talking about what we do and how we. And I said, well, our best training came from Cass Tech, right? And I'm
Oh,
gonna leave
come
it at
on
that.
now.
I'm gonna leave it at that. All the degrees, she's got. But we that was a conversation we had today. But anyway, to answer your question, Sally
Yeah.
Foley was huge. When I talked to her about, look, I'm from Detroit. I didn't. She knew that, but
Yeah.
I didn't get all of the schooling not to be, not to be successful in my career.
That's right.
So before I graduated December 2010,
Okay.
before I even graduated, she made sure I was set up with an interview with the hospice that I worked at. And I know when I walked into the interview, it was more like a conversation. Now I was prepared for the job. My director, she remembered me from speaking in my class. Right, this is why I tell people when people come into your class, make sure you pay attention and all that. But I'm quite sure, because Sally was such just a guru in our field, that by her recommending me and using me as that sealed the deal.
Yep.
So that was one, because that really set me apart from my colleagues, because a lot of us weren't able to secure jobs even right out of grad school. Some people still struggle.
Yeah.
So for me to have a job, and it was, a great working environment, it really set the tone for the rest of my career. Then there was another lady too, Reiko Buckles. She was my field supervisor
Okay.
at the VA.
Okay.
And she kind of coached me and said, listen, I know you went to U of M. I know you've been doing this, but you also need these other things in your career too. You need some certifications. We're not even looking, it's so competitive now. In order for us to get through this applicant pool, you have to be able to stand out. So those things, and when I was hired at the VA, she was right there in my interview.
Mm.
So I've had a couple people who have been more so sponsors than mentors for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. I love it. And the other
Yeah.
thing I love about it is you didn't articulate it this way, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pull it out. What you got in high school from Cass is what I got in college from Howard, because I grew up in a predominantly white environment as a kid. And so
Mm-hmm.
Howard was the place where, I said Howard made me, because Howard was the place where it was like Black excellence was everywhere, right? So as we're recording, we're in Black History Month, and I'm
Right.
just
Right.
mindful of just the excellence I saw in just day to day. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you just walk around, it was just excellent. And I remember, I'm gonna be honest, and if anybody say I said this, I'm telling them they was lying. That at Howard, those Cass Tech students, I'm not even lying to flatter you, really stood out to me, because
Yeah.
now I'm gonna say the R word. Am I allowed to say Renaissance? Can I say that?
Oh, go
Am I
ahead.
allowed to
Go
say
ahead. Put them
Renaissance?
in
Okay,
there.
I can say Renaissance. Okay, so I can remember this dude named Vance. Vance is a big time. I think he's a dentist. He might be an oral surgeon now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I had ever seen a Black man my age who was so strongly self-possessed, right? And at Howard, all the science majors, when I started, I was like a hard science major, a bench science major. I think it was zoology. And then I
Mm-hmm.
switched because that wasn't my thing. In the Valley, like Vance was just like, oh yeah, I own the Valley. This, right? Like freshman year, I just, and you know what? The other thing that tripped me out was that was the first time in my life I ever saw people come from high school and still walk around with their Letterman jackets from high school on at college. This must sound familiar. And I'm like, who does this? Cass Tech and Renaissance people. So it was just this thing where it was like, there's something that you all got. I know Diana Ross is a famous alum of Cass Tech,
Yeah.
that y'all got in high school. My husband had the same thing growing up
Mm-hmm.
in Natchez, Mississippi, where it was just like the Black excellence, because they were in segregated schools. And I'm not even
Mm-hmm.
gonna lie. And he finished he finished high school in 89. And so even in the 80s, those schools were segregated. But what he got was this strong sense of who he was. I will never forget
Yeah.
Vance, because Vance was just like, yes, I'm the man. I know all this stuff. This little zoology, what y'all got? I need something a little harder than this. This is some baby stuff. It was just like, and I just remember that. And so, what I'm hearing is that sounds a lot like what that you got from Cass, which you were able to carry with you through undergrad into University of Michigan, which my goddaughter is an alum of just
Wow.
last year. She graduated last May. So shout out to Dominique.
Yeah.
But it's just so wonderful. So I'm wondering, I guess other than bigging y'all up at Cass Tech, I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering how you take all that stuff that was poured into you, right? So you mentioned Susan Foley. Did I get her name right?
Sally
Sally,
Foley.
Sally Foley, and the other professors at Michigan who poured into you in your work as a life coach.
Mm-hmm.
How do you bring that, what they poured into you, and pour that into the people that you help with life coaching? And before you answer that, tell the
Mm-hmm.
people what life coaching is, and tell people what do they need to know to find a good life coach. So the background of life coaching, and then I got like three questions in here, three-part
Okay.
question. Can kids benefit from life coaches? I don't know. Like, I'm just not well versed in
So
that.
no, that's fine. So one, I would say for a life coach is going to help you identify what your goals are, be confident in your goals, and stay consistent so you can have the success that you want. That's the area that I work in. There's tons of different specialties and niches, but that's where I work. The second question: where can you find a life coach?
Yeah.
So that's a more difficult question. I mean,
Okay.
because it's not as easy as Psychology Today and Therapy
Right.
for Black Girls. You can
Right.
look on some of those platforms though, because I am
Right.
listed on Psych Today.
Okay.
Uh, so you can look on, I guess, yeah, to answer your question as I'm thinking about it, psychologytoday.com,
Okay.
Therapy for Black Girls. Those are the two places that I would for sure start with.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
And what to look for when you are seeking out a life coach. First, I would always, always, always have a consultation
Okay.
and ask them, one, have they ever been coached? What is their coaching style? What is their format? What can people expect by working with you? Do they have, a website, testimonials, stories? So that way you're just not walking in there blind
Yes.
and thinking, okay, I pray and I hope this works. You want to have some more security and comfort in a decision that you make.
I love
The
that.
the last question was, can kids benefit from life coaching?
Yeah.
The answer is totally yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it is, because, and I'll say this, I'll share. I've had a young man reach out to me through social media
Okay.
and said, "Hey, I've had a therapist before. I'm not really feeling it. I want to work with you as a life coach. You know, I'm looking for a black male." And I said, "Well, look, I can't talk to you. I need to talk to your parents,
Right. Right.
so we can go over, the forms and the
Right.
contracts, confidentiality, and all of that."
Right.
And I'll tell you, when I work with teens and under 18, they have still had tons of success. And I think it's because when you talk about what from Cass Tech, what that
Yeah.
brings. So one thing about Cass Tech is huge. We had like
Yes.
3,000 students in the
Yes.
school,
Yes.
a 1,000 freshmen, and at that high school developmental age, we're trying to figure out who we are.
Yes.
How do we fit in
Yes.
and still stand out? And for those who are able to do that, particularly at a school like Cass Tech, it gives you a sense of confidence, a sense of identity that you get earlier than those who are in college, especially as a black male, black person in general, but black male. Because when I got to high school, not high school, but college, the college experience, especially going to PWI,
Yeah.
it's different.
Very.
And then I went to Eastern Michigan for undergrad.
Okay.
But then
Is that the one in Kalamazoo? Or is that Western?
that's the one in Ypsilanti. It's down the street from U of M.
Got it. Got
That's
it.
Ypsilanti.
Yeah.
But then University of Michigan, there were even fewer people who looked like me. I mean,
Come on
you
now.
have to kind of like,
Come on
where's
now.
Waldo? Oh, let's hang out. Let's be friends, right?
Look, I
Like,
went
am
to
I
Wisconsin. I know what's up. I
You
know.
know.
Yeah, I know.
So, and I'm gonna say that, like, even there were only maybe like 5 black men in the program when I was there, out of like 300, something like that.
Now, let me ask you this right quick. Did
Go
you
ahead.
deal with the thing of, because my spouse and I met at Wisconsin, and for full disclosure, everybody, just for people who are curious, yes, my spouse is African American. Because people always ask me, they're like, "You met at Wisconsin? Is he white?" I'm like, "No, he's not white." Not that there's anything wrong with that, but my spouse is not white.
Right.
And so at Wisconsin, the thing that he would often get now, the other thing that's important to me is he was getting a PhD in mathematics. So he really was super, 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 super isolated, right? Because there weren't no brothers over there. So the thing that people always ask him, and this is what I'm curious about, and then you go back and finish telling the story.
Sure.
Did people assume you were there playing sports? Did you get that?
Because my program, I don't think it wasn't long enough, and I didn't interact with people.
Okay.
But I do think I know they made assumptions.
Right.
And I know that because I remember I was walking to the bus stop one day. I don't know if it was raining or not, but I had my headphones on, but they weren't playing. And I remember walking by this, like a little corner store or something. These 2 white guys, they said, like, look at him. And they, use some other terms. And I was like, it ain't even worth it. Like, they didn't know that I could hear them. Because, again, I had the headphones in, so they thought I was, and
bopping to your rap.
they thought
right?
I was,
They thought, yeah. You was getting your Drake on or whatever.
But
right?
So people, they definitely make assumptions. The bottom line, they make assumptions.
But you were saying, so you were talking about being at a PWI and how what you brought with you from Cass Tech, I'm assuming really helped you within that space.
Tremendously, because I remember now being in at U of M and being from Detroit, I had a Scarface hoodie. And I remember one of my friends, she's
you talking about Mr. Scarface the rapper, or you talking about Scarface the movie?
The movie. And she said, now this is because I was, I did what I want. Not in a professional way still, but she said, you can't wear that here. She said, you're in the School of Social Work. And I'm like, what you mean? Like, I wear what I want.
Okay.
I wear,
what did you talk about?
I wear what I want.
Oh my God.
So but what I'm saying is, coming from Cass, that's how we were able to, quote unquote, fit in by standing out, because we had our own sense of individuality. Yes. And I just would not have received that if I were looking for that in college, or, definitely not by graduate school. It's a wrap.
Wow.
So I was talking to, again, teens that I work with.
Yes.
They don't want to always fit in.
Right.
from a mental health standpoint, they want to be understood.
Yes.
And that's the part where I think we kind of fall short, because we want them to be like us, think like us. And what I tell teens is this: I say, look, you can. I know, you guys wear Crocs now, like you wear pajamas all the time. Like, I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things that we did that,
Yes.
but you still have to excel at school,
Yes.
and don't get kicked out the house.
Yes.
Because that's going to open up more doors for you. If you want to be unique like Kanye or Jay-Z, like, you still have to get good grades and listen to your parents.
That's right.
And then, he said, yeah, because I was about to get kicked out last week. Now, I didn't know that, but I was just saying, like,
Right.
That's why I said you got to get good grades. Don't
Right.
get kicked out the house. Don't smoke
Right.
weed. And you
Right.
can do what you want. Nobody's
right.
gonna care if you wear flip flops every day
That's
if you
right.
got 4.0s.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. See, and he could only receive that from a black man. And you could only give that as a black man who came out of high school self-possessed, because you were in an environment where black people were pouring into you, telling you you were important, you were brilliant. You know what I'm saying? You can write your own ticket. You at Cass Tech. Do you know who came through these doors before you? You know what I'm saying? You have a responsibility. When you walk out of here and you represent Cass, people all over this country, I'm telling you, I don't know no high schools that people know by name other than Cass. I'm serious. And Renaissance, and maybe some of these quote unquote elite, the predominantly white institutions like Phillips, Exeter, that kind of thing, or St. John's. But other than that, like, Cass is public, right? It's like a magnet.
Yeah,
school,
it is.
Right?
It's
a public high school.
You test into it, but it's public.
Yeah, people don't know schools like. And if I hadn't gone to Howard, I never would have, because there's a straight pipeline. I'm telling you, I don't know what they doing at Cass, but it's a pipeline straight from Cass and Renaissance straight to Howard. But it's just that you could, and to me, that's a sponsor. When you're talking to this child and you're saying, look, man, you can wear your flip flops, you can wear your Crocs, you can wear your pajamas, but I'm gonna need you to have your stuff tight.
Yep.
Around your grades and around how you manage and conduct yourself in that house, because that's the foundation and support you're going to have to leave the house and go do what you want to do and wear what you want to wear and be who you want to be. So that's the same way I am about this ring in my nose. I had it at Howard. And I took it out because everybody said, well, how you going to get a job with that earring in your nose? And then when I was leaving academia about 4 years ago, I was like, guess what I'm finna do? So on my birthday, I wouldn't put that thing right back. Right. And so, because it's like, this is me. Like, I love this part of who I am. I love having this earring in my nose and that kind of thing. But like you said, if you don't have a strong sense of self, like, people can just tell you anything, right? Just like when the person stops you and say, you can't wear that. What?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. They put limitations on you.
That's it.
They do. I remember when I was leaving the VA and started working with soldiers, I was in the process of growing out my locks. And I remember when I went back to the VA, I was conscious about it. I know yours look good.
Thank you.
They look good. When I came back, because I had a respectable reputation at my places of employment, and even all of my former supervisors and peers, they were like, oh, it looks so good. They embraced it. Of course, I wore it well. Yeah. But the point is, it did not take away from, it only added to my character.
There you go. Ooh. Can you say that again? It didn't take away. Say that again.
It did not take away from, but it only added to my character. So we gotta.
I'm having a moment. No, I'm serious, because I don't know why that's making me emotional. That's such a beautiful reframe. None of this takes away from this, right? The hair, the broadness of the nose, I have a big forehead. All of this makes me who I am, and it adds to my character. I'm never gonna forget that. So I'm gonna cite Jason Phillips, but it doesn't take away from, it adds to my character. I love that. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I just think, especially when you talk about teens and at that stage, we want to be able to like be us, whether we, wearing mismatched shoes or like I was telling, I don't know if you're familiar with the Detroit vs. Everybody clothing line.
Yes, of course. I have a mentee who's from Detroit. You probably have heard of her. Her name is Dr. Rihanna Elise Anderson. She's faculty at, Rihanna. She's one of my mentees.
What's up, Rihanna?
Yeah, what's up, Rihanna?
I went to middle school with her.
No, you did
Yeah,
not.
I went to middle school with Rihanna.
Well, she's always in that gear. I see her, pumping it up. So I'm familiar because of her. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
so it's
Wow.
nationwide, but the guy he went to, he was a couple years under me
Okay.
at Cass.
Okay.
You know,
Wow.
Big Sean.
Oh, wait a minute. You
Cass.
talking about the rapper?
Big Sean is not. No,
He
that's not his label. I'm saying two separate people, but they both come from Cass Tech.
Wait a minute. You talking about Big Sean, the rapper, went to Cass Tech.
Yep, he was a couple years under me.
And the
But he
person who designed Detroit versus Everybody also went to
to,
Cass Tech.
right. And I'm gonna drop one more because she was in my year. Mia Ray, Glamaholic,
Yes.
clothing line.
Yes.
With the bags.
You know what? I'm about tired of y'all casting. You sit down.
So I'm just saying, like,
wow.
And the thing is, I know Mia closer than Big Sean or Tommy.
Okay.
But she was unique, and she did what she wanted.
Wow. Wow.
And in a respectful way. Again,
of course,
graduate and all that. But that's what I'm saying. When you have a good sense of self, it just kind of just gets bigger and bigger over the years. And you can love yourself.
Yeah.
I remember I was this close to going to Howard for grad school.
Okay.
And I was, between Howard and U of M.
Okay.
They said, well, we can offer you the Black experience. And I was like,
you already had it.
I already had it. I already had it.
I get it. Look, I get it. I get it. Now, I would have loved to call you a fellow Bison, but again, like you said, and my husband was the same way, even though he did at HBCU for undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
He already had it, right? That y'all see, like, I don't know if y'all understand who come from places like a Cass Tech or a Renaissance or any other of the schools that's like that I don't know about. No shade to any of the other.
Yeah, with the King in there too.
Okay, King. I know some people went to King too.
Yeah.
Actually, I went over with a girl who I was going to say pledged, who went to King. So anyway, when you have that in 9th through 12th, I'm not saying you don't need it, but you already have that foundation. So for me, my parents' thing was, we want you to have an experience where you get to love your Blackness for some portion of your life outside of this house. Like in this house, my dad was like, "Ooh, child." My daddy would have been a Black Panther back in the day had he not been in the Navy. He was that kind of dude. Yeah. He is that kind of dude. And they were really like sort of pushing, because we did grow up in this predominantly white environment in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So I'm from the same, I've said this so many times, Pharrell and Chad, the Neptunes producers, where Teddy Riley lives now. I think he still lives in Virginia Beach. And then Timothy Mosley, otherwise known as Timbaland. We all grew up in like a 10-mile radius of each other. But so when I see them, especially Pharrell, he reminds me so much of what our experience was. Because, he's in the skateboarding and he's in the, I love surfing. But that's because we were Black kids in this super white environment in Virginia Beach. Whereas you, right? Yeah. And it was hard. And so I had to go, and I was a high achieving kid. So like when Mia and Big Sean, so y'all were surrounded, you were in an ocean of high achieving Black kids. We were in like an ocean of other people, and we were like the little minnows who were the high achieving Black and Filipino kids, because the other large population of people of color was Filipinos. And so Howard was an island. It was an oasis for me. Do you know what I mean? So when you say we can give you the Black experience, you're like, that's good. But
yeah,
I'm just saying, I've been had that.
Yeah. That's great.
Love that. Yeah. So let me, like, I keep going off on these risks because you're saying all these wonderful things that I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just sort of soaking up this idea of what it means. It's sort of like in real time, I'm listening to you talk about what it means to have racial socialization, positive racial socialization in your life at an early age, and how you give that to these young brothers that you mentor, and we're going to add sponsor, right? And how important that is. So I guess I'm wondering two things. Tell me a little bit about, I know a couple activities you have going on, either upcoming or by the time we air may have passed, that I want to make sure people hear about so they can get some of the benefit of what you're sharing with me. And one of those is a new podcast.
Yes.
Peace and Prosperity. Tell us a little bit about the idea behind the podcast and what you're going to be doing with the podcast.
So, I'm super excited to launch the podcast. So by the time this airs, the podcast will be launched.
Awesome.
It is Peace and Prosperity, but we're going to talk about all things related to peace, happiness, and success.
Oh, amen.
Reason being is because when you have that inner peace, and that's so let me take a step back. Peace and
Sure.
Prosperity Coaching is my business name, and the
Got
reason
it.
why I chose that name is because when you have that inner peace, it does allow you to handle stress better, handle anxiety. You can manage depression, just all the emotions that we have in our life. We can manage it when we have peace within ourselves.
Love it.
Coming from Cast Tech, being a high achiever, I'm also big on the success portion, not just in like a monetary standpoint, but having what you want standpoint. That's where prosperity comes in.
Love it.
So we combine peace and prosperity. And that's why the podcast will talk about that. We'll have conversations with guests about, what does it mean for you to achieve peace? How do you maintain it? What does success look like for you? Because for an actor, it may look different than for a mental health provider or a stay-at-home mom. So those are the type of conversations that we're going to have on the podcast. So
Awesome.
it's designed to be inspirational, but also very informative.
I love this. So the Peace and Prosperity podcast with Mr. Jason Phillips, and that's
Yeah.
going to premiere sometime soon. When is it going to premiere? Do you know?
So March 21st is the launch
Okay.
date. March
Okay.
21st. And then the week before that, I got to get you on there, Dr. Alfie.
Of course. Anytime. Just let me know.
The week before that, we will have I'm another cast technician, Venus Austin. She's a stylist based out of Atlanta.
Okay.
We are pairing up to have a webinar on how to wear confidence.
Oh.
So we've done it last year. Yeah, so it was so much fun. So this is the second annual webinar on how to wear confidence. So I'll be speaking from a mindset perspective, from the personal development aspect, but she's going to bring in all of her expertise from the fashion world.
Awesome. I love it.
she-
And when
she
is that
has-
going to be?
That's March 14th at
Okay, that's
3
my birthday,
p.m.
y'all. So don't forget,
Yeah.
March 14th, 2021.
And if you can't make it, then you could just kind of get the replay.
Okay.
WearConfidenceSeries.com. WearConfidenceSeries.com.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to make sure we could keep talking about all these wonderful things that you're doing in Cast Tech and life coaching and mentoring, sponsorship all day. But you got work to do, and you got a life, and you got a family that you got to get back to. So let me just ask in closing.
Go ahead.
First, let me just thank you for the time that you shared today. I really appreciate it. I definitely want to thank you for showing up for a coma project when we've asked you. We're going to ask you again, so just be ready. And we really appreciate your commitment to your craft, your commitment to pouring into these young people, and your commitment to like wearing your own confidence in a way that lets young brothers, young Black men, young men of color see that there's a way, multiple ways, right? And the thing that you said about, oh gosh, it's an enhancement. I forgot how you said it. Yeah. What did you say?
I was talking about my locks, that it didn't take away from it, only added to my character.
There you go. Adding to your character. Like, that's so beautiful. So in closing, tell the people and we want to make sure we drop it in our show notes so people can like just click and go to wherever. Tell us your website again for life coaching.
Okay.
Remind the people about the webinar. I know you said it twice, but say that website one more time for the webinar, and anything else you want to share with us about where people can find you and follow you on socials and the like.
Okay, perfect. So my website is pnpcoach.com. So pnpcoach.com. If you want to get in contact with me for coaching or speaking, and then the webinar is how to wear confidence, but the website is wearconfidenceseries.com, and that's series SERIES. And lastly, you can find me on social media, Facebook or Instagram. More active on Instagram, but I'm on both at jphillipsmsw. JPHILLIPSMSW.
Beautiful. Well, Mr. Phillips, thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the Couched in Color podcast. We want to big up, what is it, Eastern Michigan? Is that where you went? Or Western? Eastern Michigan. We're going to big them up because they help make you. We're going to big up Cast Tech.
Yeah.
Right? Because Cast Tech helped make you. And go blue for University of Michigan. So thank you again so much. I wish you only continued success, and I am really looking forward to seeing what you continue to produce as that star keeps rising.
Thank you, Dr. Alfie. I loved
You
it.
are, oh, wonderful. You are so welcome. So there you have it. That's a wrap for another episode of Couched in Color. We want you to know that we deeply value you, all of our viewers and our listeners, and everyone out there working to support optimal mental health, both for themselves and for our young people. And one of the best ways you can help our movement is by leaving us a 5-star review on our YouTube channel and everywhere you enjoy your audio podcasts, and by sharing our podcast with a friend. Please also tag us while you're out there listening and watching. Finally, head on over to dralfie.com for more information about me, www.acomaproject.org for information about my nonprofit, and those are the places you can go to learn more about how you can help. So I'll see you next week. And until then, I'm going to say what I always say, which is that I'm wishing you lots of love, lots of light, and that I'm hoping it is always, always informed by good, culturally relevant science. Take care.